So you're ready to write your first academic paper. That is a huge milestone for any researcher. But yeah, it can also feel completely overwhelming, right? Don't worry. In this explainer, we're going to break the whole process down into really clear, manageable steps. By the end, you'll have a practical guide to get you from that scary blank page to a finished manuscript. Let's dive in.
And let's just get this out of the way right now with this great quote from our source text by Philip N. Baker. If you're feeling anxious about this, hey, you're not alone. It's a totally universal experience. Our goal today is to turn that anxiety into a clear plan of action.
All right, so here's our game plan for how we're going to do that. We'll start with the challenge itself, then we'll cover the super important prep work you've got to do before you even type a word. We'll look at titles, the sometimes tricky world of authorship, and then finally, the nuts and bolts of how to actually structure your paper. Okay, first things first, let's talk about the biggest hurdle, which is honestly just your mindset. This part is all about reframing the challenge. We're going to move from that feeling of being completely stuck and overwhelmed to feeling empowered with a concrete process you can actually follow.
So with our mindset right, let's get into section 2, preparation. You know, it's so tempting to just open up a blank document and start typing, but what you do before you write is every bit as important as the writing itself. Getting this part right is going to save you so many headaches down the road. So before you write anything, you've got to answer 3 really foundational questions. First up, what's your motivation? I mean, really? Why are you writing this? Is it a requirement for your career? Or you're finding so cool they just have to be shared? Your why is going to fuel this whole process. Second, where's this paper going? You need to pick a target journal. And third, of course, you need to be sure your idea is actually ready, that you have a solid result to write about. Okay, so this slide gets at that strategic choice you have to make about a journal. You could aim high for a high-impact journal like The Lancet. We're talking prestigious, widely read, but also incredibly hard to get into. The flip side is targeting a journal with a lower impact factor. Here, your chances of getting accepted are much, much higher. And honestly, just getting that first publication under your belt can be a massive confidence boost. There's no right answer, but you need to make this call early on. On to section 3. Let's talk about maybe the most important sentence in your entire paper, the title. Just think about it for a second. Everyone reads the title, right? But not everyone reads the full paper. This is your one shot to grab an editor or a reader and make them care. And the advice from our source material is crystal clear. This is not the time to be clever or esoteric. Just be direct. And this just illustrates the point perfectly. Look at that title on the left, a multifactorial analysis of subphysiologic relationships. What does that even mean? It's so vague, it's confusing. Now compare that to the one on the right, a randomized trial of X to treat Y. Bam, it's direct, I know exactly what the study is, and I know what to expect. That is what busy editors and researchers want to see. Clarity always, always wins. Okay, now for a topic that can get a little tricky if you don't handle it right from the start. Authorship. Deciding who gets their name on the paper and in what order is something you need to talk about openly and early. So who actually makes the cut? Well, the criteria are super specific for a reason. It's all about academic integrity. To be an author, you have to have contributed to the idea, helped with the data, been involved in the writing, and given final approval. It's not pick one from the list, you have to meet all these conditions. This means that someone who just, say, provided lab space or funding, well, they belong on the acknowledgements, not on the author list. You'll probably also hear the term senior author. So who's that? Typically, it's your supervisor, the person guiding the research. Usually, they're listed as the very last author on the paper, which is a position of prestige. But our source material notes that for your first paper, your supervisor might even take the first author spot to help guide it through publication. The big takeaway here? Talk about this stuff with your team from the very beginning. It'll prevent a lot of misunderstandings later.
Okay, we've done all the prep work, we've navigated the politics. Now for the main event, actually building your paper. Let's look at the blueprint for structuring your manuscript section by section.
And for this, we're going right back to the source, Philip N. Baker's guide, which has been the foundation for this whole explainer. This is time-tested advice for how to build your paper logically, piece by piece.
So let's start at the beginning, with the introduction. Before I just give you the answer, I want you to think about it for a sec. What is the real job of the introduction? What does it absolutely need to accomplish in just a few paragraphs? Here you go. The best way to think about a great introduction is like a funnel. It starts wide, right? It gives just enough background for a reader to understand the general topic. Then it starts to narrow down, and it makes a really compelling case for why this specific study matters. It points out a gap in what we know. And finally, right at the bottom of the funnel, it gets crystal clear, stating the exact question and the specific hypotheses you're testing. It just perfectly sets the stage for everything that's about to come.
All right, a little bit of good news for you. The methods section, it's often the easiest part to write. And why is that? Because you're just describing what you already did. The key here is just one word: detail. You need to give enough information so that another scientist anywhere in the world could read your methods and replicate your study exactly. It's literally the recipe for your research.
So, there you have it. You now have a solid foundation to get started. We've gone from that scary blank page to a structured plan that covers prep, the title, authorship, and the opening sections of your paper. This is your launch pad. The only question left is the one on your screen. You have the tools to begin. So, what's that first sentence going to be?